Yamuna Tiravanna Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Allabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatira Gauranga Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada. Grantraj Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi. Итак, сегодня читаем Шримад Бхагаватам на русском языке. Bisha asked me which language I talk. Concluding almost the chapter described as, where is it? Lamentation of Devahuti. Last couple verses. Tomorrow is last verse in a chapter, and the second last. Text 56. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Na vairagaya kalpate. Na viragaya kalpate. Na tirthapada sevayai. Na tirthapada sevayai. Jivanapi mrito hisa. Jivanapi mrito hisa. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Nava viragaya kalpate. Na tirthapada sevayai. Jivanapi mrito hisa. You can repeat, please. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Na viragaya kalpate. Na tirthapada sevaya. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Viragaya kalpate.
Tirthapada sevayai.
Tirthapada sevayai.
Jivanapi mrito hisa.
Jivanapi mrito hisa. Nehayat karma dharmaya. Na viragaya kalpate. Na tirthapada sevayai. Jivanapi mrito hisa.
Word by word. Na, not, nicht. Iha, here. Yat, which. Karma, work. Arbeiten. Dharmaya, the perfection of religious life. Na, not. Viragaya, for detachment. Kalpate, leads. Na, not. Tirthapada, the Lord's lotus feet. Sevayai, to devotional service. Jivan, living. Api, although. Mrita, dead. He, indeed. Saha, he. Translation and purport. High Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose ritualistic performance do not rise him to renunciation, and anyone whose renunciation does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must be considered dead, although he is breathing. Purport. Devotee's statement is that since she was attached to living with a husband for sense gratification, which does not lead to liberation from material entanglement. Her life was simply waste of time. Any work one performs that does not lead to the state of religious life is useless activity. Everyone is by nature inclined to some sort of work. And when that work leads to religious life, and religious life leads to the renunciation, and renunciation leads to devotional service, one attains the perfection of work. As stated in Bhagavad-Gita, any work that does not lead ultimately to the standards of devotional service is a cause of bondage in the material world. Yas sarjat karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. Bhagavad-Gita 3:9. Unless one is gradually elevated to position of devotional service, beginning from his natural activity, he is to be considered a dead body. Work what does not lead one to the understanding of Krishna consciousness is considered useless. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadandikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Thank you for translating. Yeah, I understand. Have you done it before? Synchronous translation is not the easiest part. I've also experienced that. So, today we are kind of delving into the process, a gradual development of journey of the soul from work to religious work. From religious work to renunciation. And from renunciation, you're supposed to go further to devotional service. Otherwise, as says the Vahuti here, the work is quite useless. Even more, he considers to be a dead man, although it's breathing. So in the context of these things, we are kind of thinking, why would she say something like this to the husband? You know? She explains the process of devotional service to the husband, who is definitely many times more developed in a practice of same devotional service and renunciation. And only because he actually is doing this renunciation in current stage and trying to go away from the home, since his duty was fulfilled, of giving children to the wife tries to stop him. So what's the point? The husband is trying to lead the proper spiritual renounced life according to the scriptures, and the wife says, no, you cannot do that. Why? Who has read a little bit, few steps ahead? No protective of her. And also, the whole subject of devotional service has come up. Because there was the first stages, karma, lots of nice karma, practically already transcending going to the dharma, to religious life. Because definitely they didn't enjoy life as we usually think of. They were really enjoying quoting the scriptures. Otherwise, husband who is a sage, he wouldn't agree in any way. So, the next stage, as she describes here in the thing, in the verse, if that kind of religious life doesn't lead to renunciation, so the last thing which she compares, that if it's not happening, it must be dead, although it's breathing. So we can transfer that ending to each of these three stages. So if you work, there's a song, work, you know? I don't know somehow it's just stuck in my mind. There's some kind of popular song in a YouTube. You can just, sometimes it goes, work. If that working doesn't lead you to religious life, you are dead, although breathing. Next, if you do religious life, but that doesn't progress into renunciation, you're also dead, although breathing. And last thing, if you are completely renounced, but the devotional service doesn't sparkle in your heart, you're also dead, although breathing. So we will delve into the few main scriptures. How many main scriptures we have? 2, 3, 4? How much? Shrimad Bhagavatam? Bhagavad-Gita? And what else? Upadeshamrita, it is part of Bhakti Shastri, but there's another book which is part... Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion. Yeah, it's a major book. I would say these are 4 major books. Because, for example, Teaching of Lord Chaitanya is based on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and most of the books are. But these are original books. Yes. So according to those 4 books, we will try to catch the progress, how they are explained. And definitely you remember, by reading just a couple of days ago, the 12th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, in which Krishna gives you also the few steps, what to do. There's not much, I think there's 5 or 6 verses. We will read them. So 12:8 starts, just fix your mind upon me. Just think of me, personality of Godhead, and engage all intelligence in me. So both mind and intelligence, both concentrate on Krishna. Thus you will live in me always, without doubt. And that would be a perfect stage of meditation. But if you cannot do that, my dear Arjuna, the winner of wealth, fix your mind upon... sorry. If you cannot fix your mind about me without deviation, follow regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. This will develop desire to attain me. So, if you cannot meditate so much, then you have to kind of follow regulative principles. So, according to this second verse, which it refers to the first things, maybe you can imagine, or not much. Remember, there was 4 things: working, religious life, renunciation, and devotional service. So when we talk about the Bhagavad-Gita, which ones are here? The first was just meditate upon me and completely surrender to me. That refers to devotional service for sure. The next one is, if you cannot, then there are principles. The principles would be that religious life. somehow we're skipping a little bit of a renunciation here. If you cannot do that, regulative principles, then try to work for me. So now we're coming to the work, which was the first. But for me, it's interesting a little bit. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. If you, however, are unable to work for me even, what's happening? What do you have to do? Yes, just renounce the fruits, whatever you do. If you don't work for me, in other words, in Bhagavad-Gita says, you have to work anyway. Just to maintain the body, you have to work. So if you cannot work, then try to renounce the fruits of it. Work for yourself. Yeah, you work for yourself, for your family, stuff like that. But the fruits, you can say, okay, I give up the fruits. You have to give it up anyway. You have to give it to wife. You have to give to children. But they said, okay, I give it to you. This is a famous situation when somebody was a quite poor man. He received a donation, and very valuable donation of food, but not any food. There's puffed rice, And he got, when you sit in a holy place, then you receive a charity. You have been in India. You see, next to every temple, there is some, let's say, poor people. We will come up, hopefully, to that subject again, about Sukracharya's theory about giving donations to poor people. So if you're a poor man, or you at least pretend to be a poor man, then you have a bowl with something, and you receive donations, money or food or whatever. And he received the puffed rice, and then suddenly the wind blew. And since he couldn't catch all the puffed rice, it's flying around like a petals of flowers. Govinda, that's for you. He said, that's for you. So same thing, the family man who is working, and finally he has to give all the money to the wife and children and maybe some taxes and so on. Give it for me. At least here in mind, give it for me. Krishna induces that. That's possible, And if you cannot take this practice, then engage at least of cultivation of knowledge. So knowledge about what? About process as such a thing. It develops the consciousness of understanding things, Do things, but understanding what you do, not just do blindly. So, better, however, the knowledge is meditation. Better than meditation is renunciation, and such a way. So, in this way, we come to the little bit more. If we count them, carefully taking the main words from each verse, we come to the 6 points. First, cultivation knowledge. Then comes meditation. Better than knowledge, meditation. Better than meditation, renounced life. Renouncing, right? Then you not renounce, you work positively for Krishna. So 3 and 3, there comes first you kind of don't connect anything. And then 4, you connect to Krishna. You work for him. Then you work for him, but also follow some principles. And finally, you attach, you meditate on Krishna completely. So this is a version of quoting of Bhagavad-Gita. And also, it is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's confirmed. In this world, a person may be famous as Karmavira, a successful fruitive worker. Or he may be successful as religious duties. Or he may be known as hero of mental speculation. Or he may be very famous renunciant. So these is the key word in the beginning, in this material world. So these 4 things are famous. In Krishna book, when small Krishna, well, it's not completely small, but he was talking to his parents, Devahuti and Vasudev, sorry. He also explained a little bit of this principle of being dead although breathing. It's interesting, according to Shrimad Bhagavatam. There's quite a few places where this thing is mentioned. And he says that every one of us are indebted into someone. And first of all, we are indebted to the parents. He's talking to parents. He said, well, I am indebted to you. You brought me up. You gave me birth. But I was unable to pay you back. So therefore, he says, every human being should be obliged to his parents and understand that he cannot repay his debt to them. It's impossible. That austerity which our mother or father has taken to bring us up, it's impossible to do the same. It's just, we cannot. We are eternally indebted to parents. If after growing up, the son does not try to satisfy his parents by his actions, he is surely punished after death. So be careful, this is Krishna's words. If the son doesn't try to make his parents happy, he'll be definitely punished after death. I guess that also refers to the daughters, probably. But yeah, principle is, and Rupa Goswami definitely also mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we should not be negligent to our normal worldly duties, like completely negligent. No. Somehow or another, we have to understand all the living beings, as much as they are conditioned, whatever material stage of life they are, they're still part of Krishna. You have to have this vision, otherwise impossible. So, punishing after death, that's Krishna's warning. But sometimes it is possible, he says, if the person is able to care for his parents, but does not do so, he is considered already dead. Already dead, although he is supposedly breathing. So therefore he says, my dear mother, father, you'll always be anxious to protect me, but we didn't able to pay you back. So therefore, forgive our sins. Krishna is so humble that he is not able to pay his parents, and he says, I'm sinful. Krishna says, I'm sinful. Another place in Srimad Bhagavatam is also said, the person who has not at any time received a dust of the feet of the Lord's pure devotee upon his head is certainly a dead body. And the person who has not ever experienced aroma of tulasi leaves from lotus feet of the Lord also is dead body, although breathing. So this idea of being, dead bodies, walking around dead bodies is not very recent. I think this walking dead is a kind of a quite old concept. In a purport, Vishwanath Chakravarti says, the breathing dead body is a ghost. When man dies, he is called dead. But when he appears again in a subtle form, not visible to present eyes, such a body is called ghost. So we have also ghost stories in Srimad Bhagavatam. So about this charity, I wanted to come back a little bit about charity. Since I had this unusual experience in Mayapur a couple of years ago, and that happened to me since I was going to the yoga pit where Lord Chaitanya is born, and it's got a little bit of a walk from the main Mayapur area, of the ISKCON Mayapur, I mean. And you walk the main road, some kilometer probably, a little bit more, maybe something like that. And you come to the original birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, discovered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And currently there is a nice temple there, and beautiful tulsi growing next to that tree, and also the samadhi, the resting place of Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself is there just in the entrance on the right side. And I was used to go there all the time, chant my rounds in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And just when you enter the temple, there's some Mataji sitting there with the begging bowls and so on. And I thought, they must be very humble. They must be very humble to sit there and beg, because, you have to completely lower physically lower yourself. People walking around, you sit in the ground, maybe you have some mat underneath, and you think, please give me something. I thought I should try to do the same. And I got a bowl. I bought a bowl, exactly more or less similar size of them. I put in front of me. And the ladies were amazed, because they knew the days before I was coming and I was giving donation to them, And now I'm sitting there and they're like, well, he gave all his money. And amazingly enough, those beggars, they are very friendly to each other. They have kind of their own republic, And since it is principle that money attracts money, you should not sit in this place of temple with empty bowl. You should have some money inside. So since I didn't have any coins myself, all the beggars who were sitting around, they came and gave me first donation, they themselves. Yes, they gave me few coins, because also, if somebody gives you big money, you need to give a change. So you also need some coins. So they gave me coins first, put them in coins a lot. Like I'm a first day here. So that was their mercy. Of course, there was a little bit of a further development of whole things, since there was one, I would say, quite wealthy person came with a big car and bodyguards and so on. And I think he had a big note, like we have 50 euros, 100 euros or something like this. Like if you give the beggar 1 rupee, 5 rupees, it's okay, If you give them 500 rupees, he gets crazy. And the principle, not only giving donation to everyone, was permanent amongst those beggars. If you give one beggar 100 rupees, he exchanges that 100 rupees into small coins and divides to everyone who is sitting that day evenly. Everybody gets the same, so you don't get jealous. So if somebody gets donation, why would he get a donation? Because he looks older, he causes some compassion. So everybody gets, it's like a family, beggar family. So it was very nice. And one lady, she didn't have a change. It was such a big money, like really, like 500 rupees or 1,000 rupees. It's just like 20. For beggars, like you can live a whole month there for one donation. She didn't have a change. She just put the whole money and just went away. There was whole revolution. They didn't allow. They called the police, the guard, the temple, and said she is not allowed sit here anymore longer. She has to go away. And took for like half a day to pacify. Finally, she was asked to change the money and give to everyone. So that's the principle of sharing. But at the same time, Shukracharya, he's a little bit of a interesting person, since he is a saint. Definitely he's a saint, but he acts as a spiritual master of demons. So therefore, he is obliged to give instructions according to their mentality, how they should develop, Because spiritual master is not just giving any instructions as we say spiritual, going to Krishna and so on. He has to give also some daily activities, how to get married, how to get wealth, how to do this, how to that. So many things he has to give instruction. And somehow happened that he was also a kind of spiritual instructor, master for Bali Maharaj, who used to be, he happened to be, a very advanced devotee, although he was born and kind of ruling over the demons. And when the small boy, dwarf boy, actually he came begging for something to Bali Maharaj, he was disturbed. The Shukracharya was disturbed. I don't know, I probably have told it a few times already, that the small Vamanadeva, boy, 5, 6 years old, how tall it is, like that, But he was not, he was dwarf boy. So dwarfs, adult dwarfs are like this. So the dwarf 5 years boy is like this. He's very small. And he was carrying the umbrella. And when he was carrying umbrella was almost like rolling on the ground. So when the Bali Maharaj, he saw coming, he didn't see the boy at all. He just saw the umbrella walking, like he was so small, And he said, okay, I'm a small boy of Brahmana. Can you give me donation? And of course, he was promised, I will give you everything. So in a reaction of Shukracharya was quite unusual. He said, you should say no. No, don't give him anything. Don't promise anything. So because if you give, as his words was quite interesting, if you give the money to the beggar, first of all, you lose your money. That makes you unhappy. You work hard and you give your money away. And because that beggar also, most of the times, he is liar. Most of the beggars, they say, I don't have anything. Just give me, I have nothing. But actually, he is quite wealthy. There's famous beggar in London. After work, he drives Lamborghini. He sits in the main street in London, begging there. And when he finishes, he dresses up properly in a suit, and he drives Lamborghini, And that's his work. And he gets in his work more pure profit than a big businessman. That's why he can drive the car. So Shukracharya pointed out this point, that if you are actually begging, you should be actually poor. Because if you're not poor, you maybe misuse your money. If you have too much money, you waste it, And then again, one more reason you're not happy. First, you lost the money, and then you see the person you give the donation also doesn't use it properly. You're also double unhappy, 2 times unhappy. So don't give. Because I see that boy, he pretends to be a poor guy. Actually, everything belongs to him. He's Supreme Personality. So that's why he's cheating you already. Of course, his reasons why he was begging was different. He wanted to free demons from the whole belongings, give it to demigods, and engage properly in the devotional service. But that, of course, was not explained by Shukracharya. So therefore, if you possess something and you pretend to be a beggar, that's not proper at all. So what can be done? If we see that same activity, any activity, can be wrong or not wrong or good according to our thinking, so then what should be done, which is without mistake? So Bhagavad-Gita 3.9, which we're actually quoting there, it is said, work done as sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, the work causes a bondage in material world. Therefore, perform your prescribed duties for Lord's satisfaction, and that way you will always remain free from bondage. So this is the first version. Now we'll take another book, which is second. So the first was Bhagavad-Gita, now is Shrimad Bhagavatam. Now we take some interesting conversation from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Chaitanya Charitamrita has quite a bit of different discussions. But one of the discussions was interesting since Lord Chaitanya himself, he asked one of his devotees, please explain what's the goal of life? What we should do. You know? And he says, this is Madhya 857 onwards. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ordered Ramananda Raya, recite the verse, not just like your speculation, you know. Recite the verse from revealed scriptures concerning the ultimate goal of life. Please, go on. And he was really learned. He knew all the scriptures. And first of all, what he said, if one executes prescribed duties in a social position, he awakens his original Krishna consciousness. What means social duties? That comes up. And at first he says, and then he quotes the verse. The personality of God, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by proper execution of prescribed duties in system of social varna and ashrama. Therefore, is no other way to satisfy Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in an institution of varnas and ashramas. No other way. There is a scripture saying there is no other way as to satisfy Supreme Lord as a varnashrama. What do you think what Chaitanya says? Who knows the story? Loudspeaker. And this is a famous verse which many devotees in ISKCON quote as a contradictory thing that varnashrama is no need, no good. Lord Chaitanya replies, this is external. You have better tell me some other means, something better. So many people in ISKCON, not how much now, but they are rejecting varnashrama, saying this is not for devotees. This is external. We don't have external things. We shouldn't do that. That's Chaitanya's words. You know? Although we know very famous statement of Prabhupada when he was almost leaving the world, that I have given you only 50% of my ability, what I could give it to you. The second 50% is building up the varnashrama. So, it is true. So when Chaitanya says, it is external, what Ramananda says, to offer results of your activities to Krishna is the essence of all perfection. So it's kind of, he's not saying in the next verse that varnashrama is no good. He quotes a verse, okay, if you say varnashrama is external, then more important it is, have your results of activity and offer to Krishna. And he quotes verse from Bhagavad-Gita. Which one knows which one? Yat karoshi yad asnasi yad juhoshi dadasi yat tapasyasi kauntaya tat kurushvama darpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give in charity, whatever austerities you perform, offer to me, Krishna, as a personality of God. Chaitanya says, please proceed and speak further on this matter. He doesn't say this is external. He said, okay, it's good, but go on. And now comes very contradictory, even more contradictory. He says, to give up one's occupational duties in varnashrama is a system in essence of perfection. So just 2 verses ahead of each other, he says, now the give up the occupation of varnashrama is important. So unless we take the statement what the medicine for one is poison for others, we cannot understand those verses. Understand what is statement? The medicine for one is poison for others? Since in every level of development there is a necessity of kind of rules and regulations. We can give example even in the kind of very narrow society of thieves or I don't know, mafia or something like this. They have a rule. You shouldn't steal from each other. You can steal from everyone else. You can kill everyone else. But inside the mafia, inside the brand of thieves, you shouldn't steal. So if he steals from outside his company, perfect, He brings the money to the community, But if he steals from his neighbor, the guy who was working with, they had a haste, they were robbing the bank, and then you steal from the guy who helped you. That's completely against rules, right? It's impossible, They maybe even kill him, because of that. It is said his most dangerous job, being mafia guy. It's the shortest lifespan, because there's a big chance the guys who are inside the mafia they kill you, the first ones. So therefore, we have to always understand the few verses apart. In one sense, it is said we have to follow those things, but later on, it's said you have to give it up. And this was Chaitanya's. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was a small boy, he was really enjoying this. He said, okay, who can defeat me in a philosophical discussion? And they tried, Some of his friends tried to do this and this. And in a few seconds, a few minutes, he completely overturned all the arguments. And of course, they defeated, Whatever they say is defeated. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, now see how I defeat my own statements. And he goes on, and all what he said, he turns upside down completely. And everybody was amazed, And he says, again, I will present you new arguments which will defeat the first 2 ones, And they were completely mesmerized. They're like, wow. Like this. That was Chaitanya's, the hobby in his young age when he was a logical teacher. So we also understand this trait of character in creating this world. It is similar. Krishna has the same idea. He creates originally in his mind, in his intentions, he creates all this universe, which later on is constructed by Brahma. And many of those planetary systems and levels of consciousness and so on, they have so contradictory the principles that it's just incompatible. First incompatibility is one universe, devotees and demons, right? The first of all, they are incompatible. That's why they are fighting all the time, wars and everything happening. Even Krishna's time, there was fighting happening. And that's a taste. It's rasa special reason why Krishna is doing that. Yes, those duties. Okay. Then we take next book, which is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And that little bit of a different cut of the whole thing, A watermelon, you can cut like this, like that. It's always round, which way you cut. But this time, Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu explains all the progress already starting from devotional service, from the last point of previous things. And explains how the development happens on a basis of steps of this development of prema, of love of God. Adau shadha tadu sadha sanga sang bhajana kriya tato natha nivritishyat tato nishtha ruchis tatha atsaktis tato bhava tatha prema bhuyachati. So this is the verse which later on, just one verse, was taken from and later on was expanded the whole book, the book called Mathurika Nambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So what is said? In the beginning, one must have preliminary desire of self-realization. So desire has to be there. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. So interesting enough, that translation comes from actually, it's in Bhagavad-Gita, the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, the commentary. Already Prabhupada gives this thing, and of course, the same verse many times differently translated. But this time he says the first stage is you have to have desire for self-realization. Although the word itself says shraddha, faith. So he kind of puts in the same level faith and desire for self-realization. So next stage is associating with the persons who are more spiritually advanced. And that's kind of general principle. If you want to be wealthy, you associate with a different person who is more wealthy, right? If you go to the beggars, those beggars who are sitting in a temple, as much as you want, you can associate. You will not become more wealthy. Probably you will give off your money. It's true. So always, if you want to advance in any direction, including devotional service, you try to associate with people who are more wealthy, more advanced in that area. So that's the principle. Adau shada tadu sadhu sangha. Sadhu means you first have to have kind of knowledge. Who is sadhu? Right? You have to have a little bit of intelligence. This is sadhu, this is not sadhu. How we can say who is sadhu? If I would ask you, point finger, this is sadhu, this is not sadhu, how you decide? How? Come on. Just an idea. What is sadhu? First of all, word sadhu means successful. Many times when you do something nice, India says sadhu, sadhu. That means success. You have done good. No? Actually, the word sadhu means successful. The man who has achieved something. Sadhu. But of course, in our context, the devotional service means he has achieved some spiritual knowledge and he has achieved some result in practicing the same things which he done. Sadhu sangha, tado bhajana kriya. Bhajana kriya means some kind of, we can relate to the previous things, regulative principles, some kind of things, process which you go through. So this is the version of Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu. And of course, the last thing which I want to mention is also coming from our dear Prahlad Maharaj. This is 7th canto, 5th chapter, 2 verses. Prahlada says, Shravanam kirtanam Vishnu, smaranam pada sevanam, archanam vandanam dasyam, sakyam atmani vedanam. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu. This is the first one, Shravana. Remembering, serving lotus feet, offering respects to the 16 types of paraphernalia, that means archanam, the deity worship. Offering praise to Lord, becoming his servant, considering Lord best friend, and surrendering everything to him. In other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to service of Krishna through these 9 processes, understood to be most learned person, for he has acquired a complete knowledge. So these are the different versions of advancement, but somehow they are either cover each other a little bit, same words. For example, classical, as we remember, there's a famous 4 reasons for mentioned in the scriptures, in the Vedas. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. You have everything. But since Devahuti, she doesn't mention the whole thing. She mentioned work, she mentioned dharma, and then she jumps over the renunciation, which is moksha. And then next is devotion. So we can see that many devotees, they have understanding of those things, including Devahuti, but then they kind of extend it or make it wider, the understanding. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha is good. But then you can jump from dharma to moksha. Actually, this is a goal. All the working, all the sense gratification, all the religious activities should bring you to some kind of renunciation, some kind of detachment from the material world. Not the verse, not like hatred. It is also said in some verse in Shrimad Bhagavatam that you shouldn't have too much attachment and also too much aversion to material world. Oh, I hate it. You have to have a little bit of balanced, neutral position. Then you can start and progress in the devotional world. Because if you are too much hating material world, it's also not good. Why? Because this material world is created, obviously, by Krishna. So if you hate something which is created by Lord, it's also not favorable. Therefore, later on, yes, it's said that service to Lord has to be performed, but in favorable position. So, just to remind the whole thing, we can come back a little bit of things. According to Bhagavad-Gita, there was 6 stages: knowledge, meditation, renouncing of results, working for Krishna, following principles without attachment, and finally attachment to Krishna. So this is a version of Bhagavad-Gita. So on Shrimad Bhagavatam there was these 4, dharma, kama, moksha, but we jump over the sense gratification and the wealth. We jump to the detachment, to the renunciation, and finally bhakti. And later on, Shrimad Bhagavatam, the Shrimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj, he starts from that point. He says, okay, now we come to the devotional service. There's 9 processes: hearing, listening, serving devotees, practicing, so on. So this whole picture is done, and gradually, by studying these scriptures like Shrimad Bhagavatam, Gita, and other ones, we'll be able to understand and, first of all, put ourselves into the proper position where we are now. Since this is the first point of traveling by car, finding in a map where you are. If you want to go to Passau, then you have to know where we are, which point we start. Otherwise, maybe we are taking some instruction which is not beneficial, which is actually poison for us. If in early stage we try to imitate some kind of activities of advanced devotees, that's called sahaja. That means taking it cheaply. Just this morning we are discussing Ramananda Prabhu. He was preparing for his puja, and he was in a holy place where Radharani was born a long time ago, Varshana. And he said there is a few places, few temples where his local Baba, local beardy man or whatever, poorly dressed, he's training young girls to be gopis. He has special lady gurukul there. And Yeah, probably the misled parents, they think this is a utmost school, and they send their girls to the gopi school, Ultimate goal is good, we understand, but you have to understand, according to our level, this practice has to be done accordingly, not jumping too far ahead. Not imitating. Because this statement, fake until you make, it's a little bit has a fault inside. Fake means you imitate some, you smoke Ganges or you take a poison like a Shiva, you'll die, Actually you die. And it's no advancement. And that's practicing such a things many times. Shrimad Bhagavatam says, Shrama eva ki kevalam, this is a waste of time. From simple worldly life, we just see outside the windows there's these things like, stairs going up, And old statement is, if you put your stairs to the wall, make sure it's the right wall, because maybe you have to go to that one. You go up there and you see there's nothing there. You have to think where you want to go. So therefore, unless we understand our goal as devotional service and complete absorption in Krishna's service, then our practice current day may be mistaken and actually poisonous, and we waste so much time. So therefore, studying scriptures and associating with devotees who are more advanced, read, it is extremely essential for our path of progression. I'll stop on this. Maybe there are some questions or comments, please. Everybody knows what to do? Sacrifice for Vishnu, yes. Sacrifice means we do some endeavor. We're having a little bit of a ego expansion. This is mine, whatever. For my enjoyment or without even enjoyment, it belongs to me. So this is also other mistake of the beggar. If you beg and say, I have nothing, and you pretend you have nothing, but actually you have Lamborghini there, that's cheating. And if you are actual beggar and saying, I have nothing, but you understand that everything belongs to Krishna, it's also a mistake. So either you say everything belongs to me in this world and you pretend it's not, or you say no, detachment, there's nothing belongs to me. None of them help unless you understand that this is Krishna's energy. Since if you think this is mine, then you do it according to your interesting ideas. If you don't do it, you say it's not mine, then you're also not positively engaged in some doing. So both things are not helpful. The only helpful thing is understanding that there is nothing else besides Krishna and his energies, and we have to be part of the whole system and harmonically blend into it by being friendly to the neighbors, devotees, material energy, and also engage in some positive activity. First of all, I was mentioned engage in natural way. What's your nature? So you just take your nature. Yeah. If you have thieves, you have thieves. It's good. You can steal for Krishna. Later on, when you do it for Krishna, then gradually your heart is purified and you want to do some other activity. Yes. There was an interesting story. Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami said there was festival, Radha Yatra festival in America. And since the festival is very nice, they want to look very nice. There was one devotee who was shaving everyone. And he was doing so fast, like 30, 40 seconds and you're done, like this. And Maharaj asked, "Well, did you learn this? You were a barber before?" And I said, "No, I was butcher. I was butcher." Because those people who are dealing with dead animals, sometimes they have to take off the skins, or yeah. Like in Australia, there is those guys who share the sheep. There's sheep. The whole year they grow the wool. And then they come in one row, like thousands and thousands of them. And they have to take it like with a thing like this, and you don't cut, so the blood doesn't come out. You have to be really professional. So whatever profession is, butcher or wool cutter for the sheep, or cook or anything, you do that, but do it for Krishna. Unless, if you cannot do that, then you do it whatever, and when you finish doing, then you give some donation. And if you cannot do that, then you just read, just practice knowledge, because that will purify your heart. So any stage of our life, Krishna gives us chance to see where we are fit and where is the next step. So therefore, either you listen to the classes every day, and better also you study separately some hour a day, and then everything will be clear as the sun comes up. In the dark, you can bump into walls, and nighttime, if there is no light, then you just go to toilet and you have a big thing and a red thing in the forehead. You bumped in the wall, Therefore, you have a phone or something like this, so you can see where you're going. You had a question?
So in Bhagavad-Gita it's also said first comes the collection of knowledge, and then comes giving the fruits to Krishna and then worship Krishna and so on.
Yeah.
How is it or what is the importance then of really studying the scriptures or studying the books of Srila Prabhupada? Is that another gaining of knowledge, or is that the same knowledge Krishna talks about in Bhagavad-Gita?
Well, we have to understand that there is a knowledge and knowledge of Krishna. They are kind of not exactly the same. So when, of course, in a context of Arjuna, since interesting enough, that talk was given in the middle of the battlefield, so in that time, particular place, there was no time for reading books. Either you know what to do or you'll get killed. So, but at the same time, as we know, the Bhagavad-Gita was not given just by Arjuna, just for Arjuna, sorry. So it was given so everyone hears. And first of all, even thanks to Sanjay, even the outside of the battlefield was able to hear. And later on is told by Vyasadeva in Mahabharata, so all the sages were hearing. So when Krishna gives knowledge, he doesn't give just for one, he gives knowledge for everyone. So, and of course, the Bhagavad Gita itself explains that there is the highest knowledge, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. So we have to understand that person will always try to read and listen and study things what he is interested in. So imagine you are a computer guy, you just go to the shop. And if you go to the bookstore, I have seen there's like 3-4 shelves just about programming. So many different programming languages. And because that's your profession, that's your interest, you will not go to the history or children's books or anything, just because you are interested. So therefore, in a translating a verse, when the verse was saying Adu Shraddha Tadu Sadhu Sangha, yeah, the first has to be faith. Prabhupada says, first has to be desire for self-realization. So unless there is a desire for self-realization, which comes either by reading, or by association, or by Krishna's grace, whatever it is, you cannot start the process. So the knowledge of what Krishna talks, it is when he, this 12th chapter, it goes like this. If you cannot do, then if you finally cannot do, just accumulate knowledge. But knowledge, in other place, he says, this is knowledge. All others are ignorance. So knowledge about soul is the most important knowledge. So unless you kind of stumble upon the knowledge of who you actually are, who is soul, who is God, who is material world, other knowledges are not really knowledge. Because we, in a material world, we think knowledge is a fact. Yeah? You go to the news. This is a fact. Somebody, had a gun and shoot the whole school. There's an earthquake somewhere, or some kind of disaster or something news, or this star fell in love with that rock star. This is a news. This is a fact. It's fact. So what? How it relates to me? Some American rock star fell in love with the Italian rock star. How it relates to me? It's not real knowledge. This is kind of fact it is, but unless we understand, that's also soul, conditioned soul with lots of lust, falling in love with other soul with lust. It's not knowledge. So properly, if we talk about knowledge, it means knowledge of soul, knowledge of what's actually material world is, to whom belongs, who created it. So therefore, most of the scriptures, most of Puranas, any scripture starts with creation. Who created it? So if you look around, then, okay, if I'm sitting in a place created by Lord, then I have to kind of connect everything to all the puzzles to Him, why He did that, why these things exist, And then all these questions come. And Athato Brahma Jigyasa. Now has time come to understand the Absolute. So this is the beginning of scriptures. So this will give you. And then from that you can go next up. You start meditating on the whole thing, you start working, When you take same verses backwards, then you see from knowledge. Knowledge comes, I have this somewhere, conclusion. Yeah, 6 steps. You have first knowledge, then you start meditate, contemplate, it's called mananam. Yeah. After that you start to renounce the results, do something, okay. You don't really do things anymore, your life changes. You actually, not just thinking, not just knowledge, but actually start to realize, you put it into life, into practice. After that, you start working, not for yourself, start working for Krishna. And then you start principles of detachment, of regulative principles and so on, how to serve Krishna. And finally, you get attached to the person who is source of everything. So this is, according to Bhagavad-Gita, is 6 stages. Okay, we are currently running late. If you have something more, state it now or shut up forever. Yes.
Something funny, maybe just recently I listened to a lecture of Bhakti and he mentioned that...
In English?
Yes, it was in English, not Russian.
Okay.
No, it was in English. And because you were talking about we have to figure out where we are. If you want to reach the goal, you have to first of all figure out where
you are. You have to know the starting point. So, and it's the same in spiritual life. What you explained. And he said, he made a funny joke. He said, if you want to reach, as you said, if you go by car and you want to reach the goal, you have to know the starting point, and for that he said you use the GPS. And he said that's the same in spiritual life. The GPS in spiritual life is a Guru Parampara system. So it's quite funny.
Yes, well, this is the relevant part, since my mother, she was a little bit disappointed when she went to the Christian church. The same old examples of the fishermen and so on. I said, I never fished, I never had a experience of fishing anything, So for me, that example, and every time about fishermen and Jesus and fishermen and Jesus, it just doesn't make relevance. So therefore, the spiritual master's beauty and the expertise is to explain in terms which we understand. So go to the charu or some kid or some old lady, talk about GPS, What's that? What's this? GPS? GPS? Oh, you don't know too. GPS means the satellite signal which gives, GPS. GPS? Global Positioning System. GPS means Global Positioning System. Yeah. So GPS means satellite signal which gives you kind of ability by measuring distance to different satellites to find yourself where you are. With a precision of couple meters, actually. And when you look at GPS, it shows on which side of the road you are, on left or right side even. Not just going road. It just shows, I don't know. You have to switch the lines, You have to go to the right line now. And it warns you, if you want to go, you have to turn now, but you are in the left line, you have to go to the right line. So even such a small adjustments can be done, but only those adjustments will be taken in account if we are having the goal. So one is knowledge of those things, and other thing is having the goal. So therefore there's these three important parts of the knowledge: Sambandha, Prayojana, Abhideya. So for each of us has to be those three things. First, Sambandha, understanding who I am, who is Krishna, who is material world. Then you have to understand where is the goal. And the last step is how to achieve it. So these three things has to be there. GPS is like where I am. But the GPS doesn't say where to go. It just says where you are. Then you have to put yourself manually, I want to go there. And then it's calculating the road. But the goal also, the Guru's duty is to also give the goal. So therefore, Rupa Goswami is the most perfect because he explains how to do it. And in the explanation how to do it, has to be both at the beginning and the end. So therefore, Rupa Goswami, we are followers. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Bhutapala. So I am Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sat. When this Rupa Goswami give me shelter, since development of Krishna consciousness is possible by his mercy. And he is a process giver. So process giver means including the goal and what we are now. Okay, let's finish. The breakfast is cooling down. That's our next step in our spiritual progress. Next destination. Yeah. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Prahlad Lakshmi Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai.